Oh, girl, I'm a pharmacist. People curse at me every day, all the time.
They're wild in there. There are
Okay.
wild people over there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hair X Friends We Got This podcast, where we share our thoughts on the pharmacy profession, experience as healthcare providers, and explore our identities as women of color, going after it all.
As we share our stories, we hope you laugh, maybe cry, and feel inspired as you get to know us, because at the end of the day, we got this, everybody.
We got this.
Hey.
Hello. Hi, Saley. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Thu?
I'm doing very well, and I hope everybody else listening is doing well as well. My name is Thu.
Hi, I'm Saley. Listen, if my name is coming out weird, it's because I'm deprogramming from saying Sally and saying Saleh. I'm in my Saleh era.
Are you having trouble saying it as well?
I am. I really am. You know what's crazy? Someone asked me, "What does your husband call you?" Sally.
He does. Oh my gosh. Are you going to ask him to change it or no? Does he have a nickname for you?
I need you to call me Saleh. He's like, okay, I guess babe will do for now.
I was going to say, because you guys probably call each other like with nicknames and things.
With nicknames anyway, but
yeah.
I just thought that was so rude. And Henry, I know you listen. That was so rude.
That's hilarious. Oh, man. Well, today's episode is going to be a fun one. I mean, I think March's episodes were a little bit more serious, right?
Yeah.
You think? We really dive into some of the issues that we see in pharmacy. And so April's episodes are a little bit more, lighthearted and fun. And I think I always like it when we're, just having more fun than anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that I was so fired up in both episodes in March. So this month we're making up for it.
Except I loved it. I mean, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I live for when Thu gets all fired up and she's like, let me tell you something. I'm like, oh crap.
Here it
Drop
comes.
it on us.
Not gonna lie though, when I watched it back, I was really scared that I was very opinionated. I think I'm still kind of like deprogramming, right? I'm still really scared to be like opinionated and to be like a strong voice. Because I get really nervous. I'm like, oh no, people are gonna see that I'm like so stern. And I think what it is because growing up, there's so many people that would tell me like, you're too loud, you're too opinionated, you're too this, and you're too that. And because of all that, I had to really kind of like play myself, like put myself in a smaller spot. And then now I'm relearning to embrace that abrasive side of me more, because I feel like you should be able to have both.
But it's not abrasive. Okay.
But I've been told that it's been abrasive. So you know what I mean? I know,
but we need to dead that. Like we need to dead that right now. Yeah. Done with. It's not abrasive. You are a smart, extremely intelligent person that is doing your own research and taking your own stance and position on topics that have a direct impact on how you work. No, I don't think that that's abrasive. I think that if you were a man, nobody would call you abrasive.
That's very true.
Other adjectives like you are so assertive, right?
Have you ever been called bossy? Because I got called that a lot when I was younger.
Bossy, abrasive, standoffish. And I'm like, first of all, people who know me will probably laugh at you for calling me standoffish, because I am the weirdo that comes up to everybody and says hi, like, hi, hey, like that's me. Yeah. So standoffish, no. Probably I'm deep in thought and disconnected from this environment. That's what you're reading on my face. But
daydreaming.
Nah, daydreaming for real. But no. And plus, we love it. So I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm gonna start thinking about other topics that can get you all riled up.
Oh my God. Gonna get high blood
I
pressure
love
from
it
this
so
podcast.
much.
Okay, well, but today's episode is going to be split up a little bit. We're wanting to talk a little bit about the cyber attack that happened, and that has affected healthcare quite a bit, definitely pharmacy as well. And then maybe chit chat about that. I didn't do too much research on it, to be honest, but there's lots of information out there already. But it's kind of fun just to kind of be aware of what's happening in our world these days. And then the second part will be like wild, fun stories
Who
that we
has
have.
stories she's gonna share with us? Because I am rocking my brain. As she starts talking to us, maybe I'll remember something wild.
Yeah,
I've been in pharmacy a really long time from being a tech, and now as a pharmacist, I can't believe that I can't think of a wild story.
maybe because you're so desensitized. It's like wild for most people, but you're just like whatever. It is what it is.
Maybe, yeah, like, okay, I won't. I'm thinking of one right now.
Okay.
As you said
Oh,
it.
perfect. Okay.
I'm thinking of one.
So, for the cyber attack portion of the show, we're just going to be watching some of the YouTube videos out there and
Okay.
responding to it as we normally do. So, let me go ahead and share the screen.
Attack on one of the nation's largest healthcare companies. For more than a week, the attack has disrupted prescription orders at pharmacies all over the country. And as CBS's Nicole Skenga reports, a lot of people are now scrambling to get their medicine.
A cyber attack on the healthcare provider Change Healthcare is wreaking havoc nationwide as hospitals and pharmacies can't get paid and patients can't get prescriptions.
So, I mean, we've seen a lot of claims coming through as a rejected claim where obviously insurance providers are not being able to pay because of this attack.
The company discovered the hack on February 21st, disconnecting impacted systems immediately, parent company United Health stated in a federal filing. Change Healthcare says it processes 15 billion transactions annually, touching 1 in 3 U.S. patient records.
I can tell you that this cyber attack has affected every hospital in the country one way or another.
John Rigi is a national advisor at the American Hospital Association.
It's not a data crime. It's not a white-collar crime. These are threats to life.
In a since-deleted post on the dark web, a Russian-speaking ransomware group known as Black Hat claimed responsibility, alleging they stole more than 6 terabytes of data, including sensitive medical records. Change Healthcare says it's established workarounds for patients.
For smaller hospitals, are we talking about months, weeks, days?
The smaller, less resource hospitals, our safety net, critical access, rural hospitals, certainly do not operate with months of cash reserves. Could be just a matter of days or a couple of weeks.
And Nicole is with us. What is the FBI doing?
The FBI is investigating this malicious hack, and according to U.S. records, hundreds of breaches at hospitals and clinics nationwide are currently under investigation by various federal agencies, Nora.
So frustrating for so many people. Nicole Skenga, thank you very much.
Okay.
What do you think so far?
So as part of my fellowship right now, one of the courses I have to take is clinical health technology, clinical health information technology. And it's basically like a course that teaches us how technology is integrated into healthcare, taking us back all the way from the EHR and the different branches and the different ways, like if pharmacy wants a certain process, how they built that in the background, all the branches, and learning also about the laws and different things. So the cyber attacks became a really important topic that they've been discussing, or our professor has wanted us to discuss on the discussion board to talk about, because it exposes how vulnerable the system is because of all of these different routes and all of these different branches that lead to one service, such as if I hit enter, the information goes to your prescription drug company. They tell me that they'll pay before I know how much you pay. You just need a way into one of these channels and you have access to disrupt the entire system, basically. And so it's talking about safeguards, like when you're at work, your computer, the work computer, the things and places that you can visit on your work computer, and how all these things put your network at risk, phishing emails. It's a
Really?
very
It's that easy?
yeah, like it's a very complicated web
Yeah.
of networks. That complexity doesn't help make it any safer. For example, it helps efficiency because we're able to build tunnels and side roads and all these different channels and force and make things talk to each other. That improves our efficiency a lot, but it could be a huge point of vulnerability for any system. And so they have things like VPN, all these login authentications, and having rules about different sites that you can visit on your work computer. But I think as a person who's been in healthcare for a really, really long time, like this is the first time that I experienced it. I actually couldn't believe that it was happening.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
like I was one of those people that really believed that the system is solid.
Mm.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I sound super ignorant right now saying that
No.
because banks get hacked, right? Like other entities, bigger entities get hacked. Why wouldn't healthcare get hacked, right? Like, but in my head, the same question was, no, healthcare could never get hacked because of all the sensitive information that exists. They're investing in the top of the line of everything to make sure that this does not happen. So when it happened, I was just like,
Well, you know what's so wild is when I first started working in a hospital, the hospital that I worked at was part of a bigger health system. And when I first initially worked there, I think that something had happened with some of the patient information to the point where they had to bring in even more security to that. So when I was working there in the beginning, everything was kind of like free for all. Like you can access emails all over the place, you can go on YouTube, you can do whatever. And then because something happened, they started putting more security in place. And so now it was a lot more restricted. But this was like maybe like less than 10 years ago that hospital
wow.
didn't even have a lot of the security measures in place. So yeah, kind
Wow.
of like what you said, you think that it shouldn't happen, but there are definitely hospitals out there. And I can imagine even with like critical access hospitals and maybe
Yeah.
hospitals that don't have that much money to spend on
Yeah.
security. Yeah, that's really scary.
It's a
And it
lot.
can
It's
really
a
delay
lot.
patient care. That's actually really, really scary as well. But funny that you brought up the phishing email thing because I remember when I was one of the newer pharmacists and I opened up an email and I like clicked on a link and then the link went to this thing that's like, you had been phished. You shouldn't have been doing blah, blah, blah. Like they shamed me because you know how IT will send out like trick emails and like I click on the link and I felt
I'm
so
sorry.
ashamed. I felt so
I'm
ashamed.
picturing you. I'm picturing you just like at your desk, like, what?
Shocked and horrified. Yeah, but ever since I got shamed, I am very vigilant about phishing emails, and I will actually
Yeah.
report them to the point where I like report too many, and they will. They're like, this is not a fish, and I was like, well, it looks like one to me.
I'm sorry. IT department. Hi, this is Tu from pharmacy. Hi, Tu from pharmacy. I think I have another phishing email. Thank you so much. Please forward it to us. Thank you. Thank you so much. And they hang up and they're like, that
She's
was our
crazy.
weekly call from Thu with the phishing email.
She needs to stop.
That was just Thu.
What
It's our
happens
weekly
when you
email.
shame people?
Shame people. But this, I think, the other thing that my clinical health IT professor was talking about was the cyber attacks exposed like a whole nother problem where there's some pharmacies where without their insurance covering their component of their prescription drugs, most Americans can't pay for their drugs out of pocket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
She was
that's really
saying
scary.
that that was the thing that people were at the pharmacy where they're out of their blood thinners, they're out of their insulin, they're out of their stuff. And these are pricey drugs. They're inhalers. These are pricey drugs. So if the 80% that insurance covers and the pharmacy can't send that, like the option is to pay for it now and file for reimbursement. Well, for many Americans, that's not I'm not walking up to any pharmacy and dropping $1,500. That's what my 30-day supply of my tacrolimus is. I don't have it.
That is
Be
upsetting.
like, even if I have it, I don't have it. I definitely don't have it. Like, so what are we gonna do? Because I can't not have that. So, but it's $1,500 when I walked in here to pay a copay of $15. It's like, that's not part of the plan today. So I thought that that was a very, very interesting point that she made, that even people who can afford insurance through work or whatever, the price of their drugs, if they were paying for that without prescription coverage, it's a no-go.
I don't know. That's tough. It's a really actually a very serious situation. I'm surprised that like it's not even bigger news, I feel like, because I went and I searched for I went to search for articles and I didn't really see like a lot of updates about it at all. So that's why it's so weird. But let's watch this other one because Dr. Glockenflecken, he's really funny. I think you've probably seen so many of his videos before.
I saw the TikToks.
Yeah, have you seen this one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's watch it.
Play this one.
Oh, Jimothy, my boy. How's it going? Not great. Change Healthcare had a massive cyber attack. Okay. You know what Change Healthcare is, right?
Sure.
Yes. The company United Health Group bought for $8 billion? You'll have to be more specific. Change Healthcare. They handle 15 billion healthcare transactions every year. They make sure medical practices get paid. Yeah, that rings a bell. Well, this company that we own has access to 1 in 3 patient records in the US. This attack puts all those patients at risk. Yeah, okay. We could lose money because of this. We gotta do something. Jimothy, this is unacceptable. Yeah, I know. 67,000 pharmacies use Change Healthcare. They can't check patient insurance benefits. They can't fill prescriptions. Oh man, this is not good. Entire hospital systems are unable to process patient billing because of this. What was that? Hospitals can't communicate with us. We can't process claims. Medical practices and physicians can't get reimbursed by us. Oh, man. You're happy about this? No. Yes, you are. Okay, maybe a little. This will seriously disrupt patient care. People could die from this. We're still collecting premiums, though. Right? Protected patient information has been stolen from a company we own. This opens us up to legal action. Yeah, but we also own that company. What company? You know, the legal one. The federal government? My God.
Oh, I love him. He's so funny.
He is so funny. Like, okay. It's like, you should have started with the part where we're losing money.
Yeah.
Suddenly he's like, wait, what? Like, that's where you should have started this whole thing, talking to me about the company we bought and this and this and that and a third. And he's like, wait, what? Legal companies like, but we own them too, don't we?
We own everybody.
We own everybody.
I want to, lastly, I want to touch on the idea. The only reason why I bring this up is because my dad, he works in quantum physics. He actually kind of talked a little bit about using quantum computer and quantum technology to prevent hacking. Because
Really?
yeah, because in terms of like encryption, the way that he explains it, and by the way, he like, whatever he says when it comes to quantum physics does not make any sense to me. And I try to look it up. I try to Google it. I still don't get it. But I'm going to try to explain it the best way that I can.
Oh, man. I
So,
love your
like-
disclaimers. It's like, so listen at your own peril. But
Yeah,
I'm going to go for
seriously.
it anyway.
It could completely be incorrect. But someone please correct me if that's the case. But when it comes to encryption, I guess right now, the way that the computer does it is like 2 different numbers. It uses math to create an encryption. So it's like this giant number multiplied by this giant number, and you get a code, like a key. And so a hacker would actually have to use would have to run a computer system to identify what potential numbers got multiplied together to make this number. And then by figuring that out, it will actually, that's how they hack into certain systems. So if you use
Interesting.
So if you actually use quantum physics to create these codes, like instead of using math, you would actually need to have a quantum computer to break these codes. And so my dad was like talking about banks and even like encryption that's like really important government encryption as well,
Yeah,
and quantum physics to prevent some of that. So it's pretty interesting. It's pretty
that's
cool.
so interesting. And that makes so much sense because it's essentially switching the language of the
Yeah.
encryption. That's really,
But
really cool.
I tried looking into what quantum
Encryption.
cryptography is, which is the thing with the encryption, and it basically talks about like photons and how photons could be in different positions at once, and so or like maybe not at once, but just like it's like physics. So you're not talking about just like a basic math, like a number. It's like you have to be able to like find
I,
a way to identify like the photons in its position, and then I got really confused and I had to
she
turn it
said
off.
it's not like math, it's physics. And what's crazy is it is still math, but we, those of us that don't live in it, we know that it's not math because this other thing, it's like a whole
But
other.
it's math calculating photon like quantum particles basically,
Yeah.
and like the movements of
Oh
them. It's so
wow.
wild. So yeah,
That's
so
so interesting. Oh my
hopefully that will
God,
help.
dude. So, oh my God. Did you reinforce the Asian stereotype that all
Huh?
Asians are good at math?
No.
If electronic health records were optional. So I remember a time, like when I was a technician, orders were scanned to the pharmacy. I started as a pharmacy technician in 2006. The nurses, the provider, he will write or he will draw whatever
Scribble.
scribble whatever Da Vinci-ish inspirations he was feeling that day. He will write something and scan and send it to the pharmacy, and we receive that scan in the computer. Then we type the order. It goes into a review queue for pharmacists, blah blah. But I'm wondering if electronic health records were optional, like the patient could choose and say, I want my medical records electronically maintained or my medical records electronically communicated versus, nah, I'm happy to, like in my case, I'm happy to log my suitcase of my medical records up here every time I see a new provider. I'm going to bring this suitcase full of medical records from 2000 for you to go through it. Would you do it?
No, I think that's the wildest thing I've ever heard, and I would never ever do that.
Because like this discussion, Henry, I think he just indulges me, but really he thinks I'm nuts. So I was asking him, I was like, just wondering, like, if it were optional for your prescription to be handwritten every single time versus sent electronically to the pharmacy, would you care one way or the other? It's like, how many times like have I lost my Costco card this year? Like from just going to Costco and get into the car and the card's gone. Like I would lose the prescription. Of course I want electronic. But when the cyber attack happened, I was like, are we too dependent on it? But we're too far gone as well.
It's a tough one.
It's not tough. My
No,
question's
but
nuts. It's just when stuff like this happens, the way my mind works, it makes me think of like, how could this have been avoided type of way? What do we have in place when stuff like this happen? And to my understanding is, I think legally, if the patient's affected in some states, I think the number is like 40,000. You have to notify the patients that their information was breached and
yeah.
like legal and stuff
You have to
like
like
that.
put it on the news, which yeah, they did do that on the news. And it was
Yeah, I
like part
think the
of
law
the
also asks that they do a news thing to notify patients that they may have been affected. But what do we do as patients to protect ourselves a little bit more?
the reason why we're dependent on it is because it's helped us to be so much more efficient, and it's actually in the grand scheme of things, it's actually better for us to use technology like this. I think that we just kind of have to depend on the IT guys to find ways to continue to solve the problems, and even finding more technology to help with the security. So like, the whole thing with the quantum, like I said, but yeah, and hopefully doing the education for the employees who shouldn't be opening up that email or shouldn't be watching that thing on secured computers. And I think that we just have to rely on the technology to catch up. But that's the thing, is like hackers will also increase their technology. It's just a race. It's literally a race. It's like, who's going to get the best technology to do what, whether to hack or whether to protect. And yeah, I think we're kind of at the mercy of all of that now. So okay, let's take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're gonna tell some of our wildest pharmacy stories.
Oh my God.
All right, guys, we are back, and
everybody.
Hey. Okay, I can start telling some of my funnier, wilder stories. I was telling Saley this a little bit.
I don't know why I'm laughing without knowing a thing. Go ahead.
I haven't even told you the story yet, but when I was a resident, I was PGY2. I was working in the ED, in the emergency department, and I don't typically work in the emergency department. This is actually my first rotation ever there.
Oh wow!
And a lot of times we would do medication history. If there's a downtime, then you would help the staff do that. So I'm in this room with this elderly couple. I'm trying to get the patient's information, and he's in a room that's shared with another person, and the other person's pump was beeping. I'm trying to get the medication history as much as possible, and next thing I hear is this guy in the next bed. He's like, "Can you please like get someone to turn this pump off?" And I'm one of those pharmacists where I'm like, "Ooh, I don't want to like mess anything up, so I should get the nurse to get that fixed."
Absolutely.
But he was getting really angry. He was getting super mad. So he all of a sudden, I'm like, "Okay, sir, let me get your nurse. Who's your nurse?" I kind of walk over there closer to him, and like the elderly couple that I was talking to, they're like, "Yeah, could you please do something about that pump?" So it must have gone off for a while. They're all just really like tense in there in that room. I go over to the guy and I said, "Who's your nurse? Let me try to go find him." And he just gets out of bed. He's like, "I'm so sick of this." And he was just like, his anger was building up. So if you can imagine, the room is set up where there's two beds, and he's kind of like in the far corner. I'm technically standing between him and the door. He's still hooked up to like his IV. He like pulls it out. He's like walking towards me. And I was like, "Sir, like, let me just get the nurse for you." I could just feel like he was going to punch me. Like, I felt like he was going to hit me because I'm standing in between him and the door. I move aside. He runs out of the room. Next thing I hear is apparently they tackled him outside of the emergency room, and he's like, still in his robe, I guess.
Gown,
his gown, and he was trying to run off with his IV still in. So they like tackled him, take the IV out, and that was the time I almost got punched working in the emergency department. And I'm glad I'm never back. They're wild in there. There are wild people over there.
Wow.
I know.
That's crazy. Okay.
But it's experience though, you have experience working in a stressful environment like that. You know exactly what to do next. And I feel like I probably would have like immediately got out of there and got the nurse without even like a hesitation. But back then it was like one of my first rotations. I was just like, "Hold on, let me just get the nurse. Like, I'll get the nurse for you. It's just a beeping pump. Like, it's all right." And then he was like just getting angrier and angrier. And I could tell.
Gosh.
Yeah, I could tell that I was gonna get hurt. So I got out of the way.
No, it's not worth all that.
No.
That's too. I'm like, but the reason why I think it's so good, important, not good, important that we talk about like these crazy, insane encounters we've had here. It's because as long as you are in a position to be of service to people in a hospital, this can happen to you as well. Like it totally can, right? The example that I'm thinking about was kind of similar to yours in that I was minding my business. I was walking past the room. I was a pharmacy technician. Me and my little cart. I'm on my way to go make medication deliveries. I like shortcuts. So I'm going to cut through this unit so I can get to the other side of the hospital, to go deliver these medications. I'm minding my business. I'm really just do. Then I'm walking past a room and I heard, help, help, help. I'm a pharmacy technician. I'm not touching a patient. Like, I don't know what state a patient would be in for me to be like, I have to touch the patient. Because I was like, wait, someone is screaming help. But the unit I was crossing usually had a lot of geriatric patients. So I just assumed that patient delirious, like, oh, but then like nosy me, I peeped. And there's a patient that has fallen out of bed. They are on the floor and can't get up and they're screaming, help, help, help. So I go to the nurse's station. No good deed goes unpunished. Excuse me, all right? Excuse me, the unit clerk, what do you want? And so I'm like, wait, there's a patient that's screaming help. Well, they all scream help. They all want help. What do you want me to do about that? Who's the nurse for this room? I don't know. The list is behind you on the board. In the meantime, I think she can also hear the patient screaming because I can hear the patient screaming as I'm taking the time to look at the board to find out who the nurse is. As I'm turning my back to look at the board, I guess like a nurse in like the charting station in the back heard our exchange. And the moment that like he stepped out into where we were, he could hear the cry as well. And he was like, are you okay? I was like, I think the patient fell out of bed. That's what the scream is. And I guess he pressed some button because all of a sudden a million nurses came out of nowhere. And of course, a
million of nurses came out of nowhere.
The million nurses, like I just thought I was in an episode of like some show because they were all around me. And now I'm in the middle of like an incident report because the patient fell out of bed. Like I guess it's a hospital related event or whatever. And I'm just like, I just wanted to mind my business and deliver the drugs. I just wanted to cut through and have my shortcut. But the unit clerk and the charge nurse, she was very interested in that exchange. And what I didn't know was that there were already a lot of complaints about her lack of professionalism. And today there was a third person that witnessed it. So she was in a lot of trouble. And like, she wanted to apologize to me. And I was just like, no apologies needed. I was just taking a shortcut. I just wanted to get where I wanted to go. And then I end up getting yelled at and no good deed goes unpunished. But I think like that has happened to me a lot of times where I thought I was helping and then found myself in like situations where I was like, you should have just kept going. You could have just you could have just pretended like you didn't see it. But someone was screaming help. Like I didn't know how to ignore that.
Yeah, you couldn't. Yeah. That's yeah. Well, I mean, but it's like it's a tough one because I wouldn't be able to do anything anyways, right? And you don't know, like maybe they are delirious. Like there are geriatric patients out there, if they have like a little bit of a low sodium, they are just like wow, like screaming in their room, and you can't be like going to all of these rooms.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, just
sodium
like
below.
No, but that reminds me, speaking of coming to somebody's help, I was walking to work one morning and I'm going from like the employee parking lot to the hospital, and I hear this like kind of a tumble, and I look over and a woman, she fell, and I noticed that she hit her head. I could have imagined it, but I definitely saw her head hit the floor. And I look around and nobody was there. And it was just me and her.
Not. Of course not.
And I was like,
you are it.
No. And I was like, oh man. So I like run towards her.
My second example is
that I run towards her and I was like, ma'am, you fell and hit your head. Are you okay? Part of her face did hit the floor because her lips were bleeding. I mean, it was like, there was a lot of blood. And I was like, you hit your face, like you hit your lip is bleeding. Can you tell? And actually I think I got somebody else to come help her, and we both like got her to stand up, and she was just like wearing weird shoes. I think she was carrying like all these bags. I think she just kind of tripped and fell on her own shoes maybe. And initially she was like, no, like I don't need to go to the hospital. I don't need to go to the hospital. But she was also kind of just like really, like, she seemed like disoriented in a way. I don't know. She just was like very kind of like off. And so I was like, no, like we should probably get you to the ED. Like you're bleeding a lot. Like she was bleeding, like dripping. Blood was like dripping down.
No.
And then we finally, another person came, and we finally called this like little, you know how in the parking lot there's like a little golf cart driver. And so we called that guy, and we're like, can you take her to the ED? The guy was like, all right, well, we're going to call rapid response. And so they called a rapid response, but like no one came to the rapid response because we just put her on the cart and he took her to the emergency room. But I was glad because, you know, she was kind of like adamant about not wanting to go to the ED, but she was bleeding so much. And eventually somebody else was able to convince her, like, look, ma'am, like you're bleeding quite a bit. But like her blood was like literally dripping like water almost. It was so thin. So I was like, are you on a blood thinner? Because of course I'm a pharmacist, so I'm like, immediately I go there.
You're
right?
triaging.
Like,
you're triaging.
yeah, I'm like, are you on a blood thinner? She's like, I am on warfarin. I was like, okay, well then you definitely need to go, because I mean it was just so thin. And I was like, make sure you let them know that you're on warfarin, because they need to be aware of that. And she, at the end, she was like she really trusted me by the end. And I was like, okay, good luck. So then once everything was done, like adrenaline, like rush, major adrenaline rush. I'm like, I run into like the pharmacy department. I go to, I was like, you guys, you can't believe what happened. And then
let me tell you how I saved a life today.
I was so scared. And they were like, oh, you were the rapid response? We heard it. So I guess the whole hospital heard it. No one came except for me.
Remember the time when Thu responded to a rapid response by herself?
By
like
myself,
us.
guys, by myself. And
I was, and I promise you, every time weird things have happened to me, I was minding my business. I just want to go on record saying that I was minding my business. I wasn't searching for it. I was minding my business. I was coming out of a medication room. You know, like on different units, they have like an isolated room where the Pyxis and the medical supplies sit. So I go in there and fill the Pyxis, and I'm pushing my cart out. As soon as the door closes behind me, there's a nurse that is walking, and she's just going to walk right past me. Dude, this is by far one of the scariest experiences I've ever had. And I'm still not in pharmacy school yet. I'm just a tech when this happens, okay?
This is a trigger warning. Saley is about to describe an accident involving details of brain trauma. The description can be too much for some. Please use the chapter in the description box to skip ahead.
She slipped and fell flat back. But it wasn't the fall, it was the sound of her head hitting the floor.
Oh my God.
I froze. There was no blood, there was nothing, but her eyes started flickering. So I'm standing, because she literally fell at my feet. I'm standing above her. I'm seeing her eyes flickering. It looked like she wanted to like say something, but couldn't. And I'm just frozen. I'm looking at her. She's looking at me. And I'm like, I think I was saying help. But the nurses told me that absolutely nothing came out of my mouth. Like, I was in shock. The sound was like one of the most awful sounds I ever heard. Like, it was a thump like no other. She hit her head hard. And the nurse that was sitting on the other side, I guess, got curious about what that sound was. But I felt like she and I were standing there, just the two of us, the only two people in the world, for what felt like a lifetime. But that other nurse said that she responded rather quickly. But I think because I did nothing, like I'm holding the basket full of medication, that's shaking, I'm shaking, and I'm looking at her, and her eyes are flickering. And I think she's trying to say, but nothing's coming out. I'm certain that I was saying help, but the nurse that was right there said that nothing came out. So she sees that the girl is on the floor and comes over and then does something else where a million people all of a sudden are there. And I'm still like stuck in the position like this with the basket in my hand and I'm trembling. So the CNA, I think it was, or one of the LPNs on the floor, like grabs me and takes me to the little QB area and was like, just sit here, just don't move. It's okay. Like just sit here. That nurse ended up being out of work for close to 8 months for traumatic brain injury.
Oh my
He was
gosh.
seriously injured as a result of that fall at work. And
It was a fall. It wasn't like a seizure?
it was a fall. It wasn't a seizure. Fully functional person that just slipped on water or something that was on the floor in front of her. And I don't know how I didn't slip on it because I came through that door and out of that door and I'm standing there deciding, do I go left or right? And she's just like walking past, do you know how many people? And she slips and fall right at my feet. And then they take her to the ED. She's gone. She's gonna go, they're gonna go help her because she's gonna need help. And what was also very telling that day was there was no blood. There was no blood. Like her head didn't crack open or anything. And so to think that she ended up 8 months unable to return to work as a result of that just tells you how delicate like the head and how difficult it is for you to gauge like what is a hard hit and what isn't a hard hit. Because I was just surprised. I thought that she cracked her head open. I thought that there would be blood. There was no blood. She definitely could not speak. By the time they moved her, she wasn't able to speak. Then they come to me and they're like, are you okay? Are you okay? I can't speak. And they're like, just nod or blink. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
I come back and my pharmacist, I'll never forget, my pharmacist, Jean, that day, he's like, that was the longest delivery of all deliveries. I was about to overhead page you. Are you okay? And I was like, a nurse fell in front of me and I was useless. So now my emotions took over because now I'm like crying and all this stuff. And he was like, well, think of it this way. You're definitely a fit for pharmacy school. I'm like,
Thanks a lot.
I was like, you're not even helping. But that was so scary to me that day. Like, that was scary. That was just like that was a scary moment. And then I go from that person to being the resident who, like, if they said a patient had neck fash, I wanted to see the wound. Like I wanted to be all up in the business. Like
No.
if people got amputations, I want to see it. Like I went from that super scared person that can't engage to like being the pharmacist that when physical exam is going on, I am right there. And I always ask the students, if you're uncomfortable, you can step out, but this is how I learn. I
Yeah.
like to know that what I read and what that looks like. If the patient has a rash, if the like, I want to see it, no matter how disgusting it is. But it's, I think like maybe that experience just made me feel like I can't, I can't claim to be in healthcare and be this afraid
That's true.
to like spring into action. You know what I mean?
It's true. Yeah, that's also a reason why I do avoid like ED, for example, because I know that it's just
It's a
I
lot.
don't know that I would be interested in
Yeah.
that. But
It's-
but I when I went to that lady who fell, I part of me was like, oh gosh, like I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, am I even ready for this? Like, do I even have the training for it? But I think that just it kind of kicks in a way, like
It
even if
does.
you may not remember everything, because
Yeah.
there's no way, like that you would just still stay around and like help as much as you can,
Oh,
anyways.
yeah.
But yeah, part of me is like, I wish that I remember more of it, but the problem is like I don't do any of it at work.
I work.
None of my positions so far requires pharmacists to attend a code. So even if I did learn it, I would never be able to practice and apply it. So then I would keep
Yeah.
forgetting. So
Oh,
yeah.
I've been like our hospital, like my last position didn't require me, but if they called rapid response, on a patient that I'm following for post-discharge follow-up, I tune in. I definitely tune in, then text the nurses, like, what do you need or what's happening? I tune in. And I want to see the note right after to prepare myself if my plan is going to change or anything. But as a resident, we were expected to run to every code. By the time I get there, I think I'm the code. I'm so out of shape. By the time I get to the code,
like breathing hard.
I'll never forget this. One time, like the preceptor that showed up with me could hear me breathing, and he goes, "You're not gonna code as well, are you?" I ran up to that code and I was like, what? The code pager just went off crazy. And I'm like, oh, where is it? I'm like, oh my God, the 4th floor? I gotta take the stairs. I'm like running to get to this code. And by the time I finally get there, he's looking at me like, and he goes, you're not gonna like be a code as well, are you? I was like,
so funny.
Like, excuse me. I need to go catch my breath. I'm curious about something. Like, I have weird things happen to me in like the real world that are not pharmacy related, but I call on my pharmacy soft skills to de-escalate them or to just not engage with it. Do you know what I'm saying? So just
give us an example.
Just the other day, I'm at Costco. Again, I'm minding my business.
Like you're always at Costco.
Again, we're at Costco a lot. We love it there. Like, I'm at Costco minding my business. And of course, this is going to be a problem with the line. I'm in line, and the lady behind me thinks that I cut in front of her, but she is upset. I mean, she's dropping F-bombs and I'm all types of B's. I am so entitled. I am uppity. She's calling me all sorts of names. You would think she was talking to another person. I was just like there, like, I don't hear it. I really credit my pharmacy training for that. Because after a while, like especially transitions of care, I've become so used to people swearing at me that I'm so unaffected by it. Completely. I get to the cash register and the girl's like, how are you just not responding to her? That's why she's still going on and on and on. I was like, who, me? She was like, yeah. Like, why are you like, just like, whatever? I was like, oh, girl, I'm a pharmacist. People curse at me every day, all the time. I just say, okay, have a great day. And that's what I ended up doing. And that infuriated her more because when I was pushing my cart, I was like, okay, you have a wonderful day. She was just like,
oh, how did I use my soft skills? I don't know. I don't know if I do. I think that like working in the hospital, one of the things that I try to do is maybe not put like one of the soft skills that I have maybe is not put anybody on a pedestal. So like if I work with a doctor, I'm not gonna like put you on this hierarchy just because you're a doctor necessarily, or I just kind of like keep everybody the same. Because I've experienced this thing when I first started working that a doctor could definitely make me feel like crap, or I feel so scared to interact with somebody. So the only way to handle that is to say like, they're just another person and they can like yell at me, be angry, think that I'm an idiot. I'm just still going to reach out and talk to them because that's my job.
Exactly.
And so I feel like because I've gotten to that point, I don't really put anybody on a pedestal really anymore. Not even when maybe I should, but I really am just like, you're just another person. I mean, whatever. I don't see you as better than me. I don't see myself as better than you. So I really just put everybody on the same pedestal. But I told you this really embarrassing story the other day where I was at a party and we were kind of mini gambling. Like we were just kind of gambling for fun. And I was talking to these 2 doctors, like they're physicians. At this party. Do you remember this story? And I was like, oh, how much are you guys gonna put down? Like, how much are you gonna bet? And they're like, oh, maybe like $5. But I was like, nah, let's do $50. I mean, we're all doctors here. We got money to spend. And then immediately was like, oh no.
Wrong audience.
Silence from the people. And I was like, oh no, that was so embarrassing that I said that. But truly,
That's
like,
so funny.
just because you're a doctor, it doesn't really mean that I'm gonna like put you on any kind of pedestal.
And
Like,
no, but I think it's a great way to be. And also when you have students, it's a great thing for them to see you that way, because we like the intimidation factor. I always tell my students the only difference between me and the physicians or the nurse practitioners and the PA, it's choices, the choices we each made. They chose that, I chose this. That's the only difference. For me, let's just be mission driven. What is the mission? Let's do the best for the patient. And if that is true, and if that really and truly is the mission, titles up in here don't matter.
titles don't matter.
They
Not to
don't
me.
matter. We
Yeah.
need to be communicating effectively, respectfully, clearly for everybody so that we're all accomplishing the mission. I think that that's so good for students to see when you are respected, your voice, you voice it, and you share your opinion on certain
Yeah.
things and certain routes. And even when there's, I don't like to say disagreement, but I just think an intellectual exchange with the providers. That's what I call it. Like, right? I was like, I'd like to have an intellectual exchange regarding the dose of this thing. But I think for students to know that it's not all rosy, but you can set boundaries. You 1000% can set those boundaries of what you require your colleagues to treat you as, to speak to you as, and nurses, even if you say that you've been calling for the drug since 8 a.m. and it's now 8 p.m. At 8 a.m., I was having a wonderful breakfast at home. I wasn't here. So I don't know what happened at 8 a.m. But they're frustrated because they've told the same story to 3 pharmacists and they still don't have what they need. So I try to give everyone grace, but I hope to have that same grace back. But I love that you keep everyone at the same
You know what I think is there's a comedian, his name is Trevor Noah. He's one of my favorite comedians, and he said
his name is Trevor Noah. I love Trevor. You probably know who Trevor Noah is, girl.
I don't know who people listen to. I love Trevor Noah.
I didn't know that other guy.
Who?
Our Galentine's live.
Oh, Jacob Elordi.
I didn't know him because I don't watch Euphoria, so you're right.
Yeah. No. Trevor Noah is awesome, and I'm a huge fan of his. But one time he said something like, the president of the country or like the biggest world leaders, they all eat and poop. They all sit in the toilet every day. Why are they better than me? Like, we all do the same stuff. We're all gonna die. And I take that
the commonality
seriously, because I'm like, yeah, like you think you're better than me, but at the end of the day, we're all the same. Like, we eat, we poop, and then we die. Yeah. Like, we're all the same. So
your pants go on one leg at a time, no matter how good you are.
Yeah,
it's gonna you're gonna have to do it one leg at a time and pull it up. And that's how we all have to do it. And we all will die.
Maybe they have robots that put pants on them for them.
Don't start with me, too. It's like,
my gosh.
I think I love that approach. I really like it. I may actually start doing it.
Yeah, use it for everybody. It works very effectively.
Because I get starstruck. Like, I feel like certain people, like when I meet them, whether it's via Zoom or whatever, and I'm before the meeting, I'm just all like, oh, I am meeting the Thu Nguyen. Like, like it's all this built up anxiety. And then they get on and it's just like, girl, how are you doing? And I'm like, oh,
we're normal.
Really normal people behavior. I like this.
Love
so
it.
The key is just,
I
think let's take Thu's approach here. And also, Thu, one last question. I know you're eager to wrap. Have you been at yoga lately? We need some more yoga wisdom.
I know I haven't. I'm sorry.
Okay. Put it on the list, please. I speak for everyone listening. We would love to know what else you learned at yoga that was revealed to you.
Oh gosh.
The last thing that stays on my mind, my life is not perfect, but it has been interesting. I told you, I carry that with me now. That was one of
That's
your yoga
amazing.
revelations things, and I really hold on to that. So you go to yoga for us.
Okay, we'll go to yoga for you guys, and I will report back, and hopefully it's profound, but if it's not,
Keep going.
that's all right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening to our episode. I know we got to wrap. I feel like we could talk forever, but, you just got to wait for the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And if you find it interesting and you think it's beneficial, please send this to other people, because we want to create a community, and this is one way to have them join. Oh yeah, you do the next part.
If you're listening to us, please know that this episode, and at this time, I think 14 others,
So many.
are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. To reiterate what Thu said, when you like, share, or subscribe to the podcast, you help make our podcast more discoverable to others that find the things we talk about here to be interesting, beneficial. We are building a community, so that means it takes you and us together to get this thing going. We appreciate the support every single time. All of our socials and how you can find Thu, myself, as well as the show page will be linked below. And please don't forget to share. As always, until next time, don't you forget it. We got this.
We got this, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.